Hey guys, welcome back to our series on the best places to RV and camp throughout the United States. Today we're going to be looking at the Northeast, so let's dive in. First up on our list is going to be Boston, Massachusetts. I've kind of thrown the whole city in here because it's really hard to pick one spot in or around Boston. There's just so much to do in this city. There's the history aspect of things, whether that's the Old North Church, whether that's the Freedom Trail, or even more recently constructed spots like Fenway Park. It's great to catch a game there. But really anywhere you look in the city, you're going to find something of historical significance. So that's really cool and not something that a lot of places around the US can say. But it's not just history that makes the city famous, it's also famous for its seafood. So while you're there, make sure to check out the local cuisine. And there's also a lot of other fun things to do as well, like going out on the River Charles. You can actually rent a paddle boat or a kayak and just kind of spend an afternoon out there. So if you ever head this way, make sure to plan for spending some time in and around the city. There's lots of campsites around Boston, so make sure that when you go, again, you block out some time and really make sure that you get the most out of this place. Next up is Niagara Falls. Now this may seem like a really obvious addition to the list, but we have to mention it. It's almost impossible to talk about the Northeast and not mention Niagara. It's one of the most photographed places in the world, and it's usually kind of considered an honorary eighth wonder of the natural world. So just a place of immense significance and just general immensity. The size of these waterfalls really can't be overstated unless you're standing there. It's really incredible. It's actually the most powerful waterfall in North America when you measure by flow rate. And while you're kind of in this general area, if you're on the US side, it's worth a pop over to Toronto, which is right across the border on the Canadian side. And then if you're in Canada, it's worth heading over to Buffalo, checking out some of the places around that city. Just two great cities, and this particular location is kind of sandwiched right in the middle. You can take the Rainbow Bridge to get to either side of the border, but either way, this is a great spot to visit. Make sure to add it to your list. Third on our list is going to be another spot in Massachusetts, and this one's going to be Plymouth. Now obviously Plymouth is very famous as the original landing site of the Mayflower and kind of where the Pilgrims initially set up shop, so to speak, when they came over to America in 1620. So there's actually a kind of recreation of the original Plymouth colony that's just right outside the city of Plymouth. You can actually go to the site where Plymouth Rock is. There's only about a third of that rock left, so most of it's kind of been destroyed or weathered away over the years, but you can still see at least part of it, and it really is something that's impressive, having been there myself. Really a cool spot to be. There's also a lot of other cool historical sites like Burial Hill. This is the spot where a lot of the original Pilgrims are actually buried. And then there's also First Parish Church, which the building was constructed in the 1800s, but the congregation there has actually existed since 1620, since that original colony. And so it's really worthwhile to visit. Again, just a place with a ton of history and a lot of great camping around as well. So definitely check it out. Fourth, we have Watkins Glen State Park. Now this is a park located in upstate New York, and while Niagara Falls gets a lot of the attention in this general area, Watkins Glen is something that you're really going to want to check out if you're in this area. It's definitely more understated, but it is so worth your time. While Niagara Falls might best be characterized by its power, Watkins Glen could probably just be described by its delicateness almost. There's a 400-foot stream that kind of tumbles over a series of 19 much smaller waterfalls than Niagara for sure, but it's really breathtaking to take in. There's a lot of very lush vegetation around and a lot of great hiking trails. So if hiking's kind of your thing, if the outdoors kind of calls to you, this is definitely a spot you're going to want to visit. There's also a lot of great fishing at nearby Seneca Lake. So again, if you're a fisherman or an outdoorsman, this is going to be the place you're going to want to visit for sure. So obviously the spots we've looked at so far on this list have been contained to New York and Massachusetts. And while obviously those two states do have a ton to do, we want to make sure that we include some of the other states in the Northeast in this list. And so we're going to shout out Gettysburg, Pennsylvania as the final spot on our list today. This spot, if you're not familiar with it, which I'm sure most people are, but just in case, it's the site of the bloodiest conflict that was ever fought on US soil between Union and Confederate forces during the Civil War. And it's largely considered to be the turning point of the war for the Union side of things. So it's very, very pivotal as far as the history of this nation goes. And then obviously it's the site of Abraham Lincoln's famous Gettysburg Address, which most of us have had to read in school, whether that was more recent or further back. It's kind of been a staple in American literature for quite some time now. But it's not just famous for the history. Again, just like Boston, there's a lot to do in this area. Just the charm of Gettysburg, the actual township, is really something spectacular. So if you get a chance to go, again, make sure that you don't just focus on the history, though that's obviously a critical thing to do here, It's worth going just to check out the natural beauty and agricultural significance of this area as well. And last but certainly not least, we have our bonus selection for this video, which is the lighthouses up and down the coastline of Maine. Obviously, there's a lot to choose from here. We're not going to narrow it down for you, so we're going to keep it a bit more generic, but you've got a lot of different options all the way from kind of the southern coast of Maine all the way up to the US-Canadian border in the north. There's like 20 or 30 of them, I think, if I recall correctly, that are open to the public. And many of them will also let you stay overnight. So just keep in mind that might be an option. Just do your homework ahead of time before you select one to go to. And as somebody who's been to Maine in the fall, I would really encourage trying to go during that season if you can. Try and plan your trip to hit that state during that time frame, because man, it is spectacular to see the leaves changing colors and to visit some of these places kind of during that season. It is really something to see. So if you get a chance, make sure you check these out. So guys, thanks again for joining us as we've looked at these spots in the Northeast. If you've got any questions on anything in this video, any of our products, or anything at all like that, don't hesitate to reach out. We're available by phone, chat, or email. In the meantime, happy RVing.